Hello, everyone, and welcome to this ninth episode of Chess Endgame Tactics, where tactics are combined with chess endgames to make the learning experience more exciting. Because sometimes endgames can be a little bit slow, but if you're studying tactics combined with endgames, it may make it a little more fun. And today's episode is entitled Killer Queen. So, with white to move here, what would you do in this position? Pause the video at any time if you need to think longer, but take a look at this. So, the material is even here. So, both sides have 5 pawns, a rook, and a queen. But if we look at white's position, his pieces are more active and attacking here. His rook's on the 7th rank. The queen is backing up this rook, and it helps to limit the movement of black's pieces. His rook is very passive and defensive here, guarding this pawn. The queen is trying to guard this area around the king, the h7 pawn with the king, and the king is kind of trapped in on the side here. And also he has doubled pawns. And white has this extra passed pawn here on the b file. So, what should white do to press his advantage here? What do you think? All right, let's take a look at the evaluation and analysis here. All right. So, it looks like white is ahead here by plus 3.2. And if you found the move h4 here, this is the best move in this position. Of course, according to the analysis, b4 would be fine, trying to press forward your outside passed pawn. Queen to e7 is also a good move, but h4 is the one we're looking for, as this move sets up an attack for white. So h4, and the immediate threat here is, let's say, rook to e8 were played, just threatening to attack this pawn. Well, now we have the possibility of rook takes h7, checking the king, and the queen would have to capture here, the only choice that's available. But now, after h takes g5, the king is in check and must capture the pawn or move to h5. So after the pawn capture, this leaves the queen unprotected here. And after queen to h7, white would be winning with this extra queen, as this pawn's under attack. And white would have these two outside passed pawns and a queen versus a rook. So, if we go back to the beginning here and take a look at this, after h4, in the game, g takes h4 was played. And so, another option would be, instead of that, instead of g takes h4, another option possibly would be g4, giving a little bit of room for the pieces here. But after queen to e7, threatening mate here on g5, the pawn would be pushed forward, and then the game may continue with rook capturing on h7 here, and then the queen could not capture this rook, or then it would be an immediate mate with queen takes g5 mate. So instead, the king would probably have to move to g6, and then the attack would continue with this queen just wreaking havoc on the king. The king could try to run, but then the pawn could capture with check, And if the queen captured, well, then we would have queen to e7 check. The king tries to run, but now the rook joins the attack, checking. And if the king continues to run, now we have rook to g7, attacking the king and the queen. And so after this here, mate would be delivered. So that is another possibility in this variation. So if we go back to the beginning and look at the h4 move, in the game, g takes h4 was played, and then queen to e7 was the next move here. And if we go back and look at this, queen to e7 is the best move in this position, as it immediately threatens mate here on h4. So g5 would be played, but now white has the option of checking with the rook or the queen here. And in the game, it continued with, let's see, queen to e6, checking with the queen. But the computer says the best move is rook to f6. So we'll take a quick look at that. Rook to f6, checking the king. And according to the computer, the best move is to block with the queen, but then you would just lose your queen. So if black tried to run with king to h5, then the game would just continue with queen to e4 here. So if we go back and look at that, that is the best move by far. And it may be a little difficult to see that move, but after queen to e4, the threat would be moving the queen here to f3 with check. So let's say rook to f8 was played, attacking this rook. Well, now white can continue with this queen attack. Queen to f3 with check. g4 is forced, but now we have queen to f5. And if the queen blocks, well, now we have queen to h7 check. And once again, if the queen blocks, which it is forced to do so, then we would have a mate. So another killer queen sequence here, hunting the king down and delivering a mate. So that was with this rook to f6 checking move. But in the game, instead, queen to e6 was played. So queen to e6 check, and then the game continued with king running here to h5, as if the if the queen would have blocked. So if we go back here, if the queen would have blocked this attack, well, then you could just have rook to f6, pinning the queen to the king. So the king runs, and then we have the best move in this position, g4 with check is played. And now the king is forced here. The king cannot retreat because the queen cuts off any escape. The king cannot capture this pawn as it is protected by the queen. So the only move available is h taking on g3, capturing en passant here. So this now gets rid of the attacking pawn, but queen to h3 is played next. And if we go back one move and look at that, that is also the best move in this position. Queen to h3, check. Now the king is forced to run up here to g6, and queen to f5 is played. So the king now runs to h6 here. And in this position, rook to d7 was played. So the rook just moves back to d7 threatens to capture this pawn with check. And we could look at another option here, rook to f6 perhaps. So if that were played, well then the game could continue with king to g7. And take a look at that. It looks like that is the best move, but already white is pretty much winning here. The king could try to run, but then once again this rook moves away, capturing this time on d6 and threatening a mate with queen to f6 here. So queen to e8 could be played, giving the the queen some room to escape. And if we go back one, here, black is in such trouble. There's not much that he can do. It looks like queen to f7 is the move recommended by the computer, but that could allow rook to d7, pinning the queen pinning the queen to the king, and then the rook would be able to just capture the queen here with check. All right, so maybe if queen to e8 were played, now the game could continue with this rook to d7 move, and after the king tries to escape, it would just lead to mate here. So let's take a look at what happened in the game. I'll go back to the beginning for a review, and we'll play it all the way to the end. All right, so in the opening position, h4 was played, the best move, and the pawn was captured. Then the queen moves in, threatening a mate here on h4. g5 was played to stop that queen capturing on h4 with check. So now the queen checks and the king begins to run. But after this g4 pawn move with check, this forces a capture en passant. And now the killer queen moves in, hunting the king. And the king must run. The queen checks again. After the king runs further, now we have a retreating rook move, moving back here, threatening possibly to capture here, capture this pawn with check. And in the game, rook to f8 was played, attacking the queen. But now we have rook capturing with check. The king runs, but another killer queen move, queen to e5, leading to a mate in 3. So how would the game continue? Well, in the game, king to f7 was played, and after queen to f6, the only option here, this is where black resigned, but his only option is to run up here, king to e8, and that would just lead to rook to d8 with mate. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this tactical endgame where the active queen and rook just chased the black king all over the board as black's rook and queen were caught in passive positions, just playing defense the whole time. So just remember that in your own games, especially in rook and queen endgames. Try to ensure that your rook and queen are more active than your opponents. And, if you can, trap your opponent's rooks and queen into a passive position, if that's possible. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this Chess Endgame Tactics episode number 9 video. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe, and feel free to leave any comments or suggestions. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.